Locho sambo pagyo trashepa tuche tempe tinle yarngoda pelge drolo tsampe tseprachi palden lame shabla solvade Omo a guru vajra dara suma timo nisha sanekar Uta varda nishribar Varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Om Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timonish Uta Varda Nishri Bad Varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Om Guru Vajra Dar Suma Timonish Sanekar Uta Varda Nishri Bad Varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Pakyuke kudan dagi lo, pakyuke sundan dagi nga, pakyuke tukdan dagi yi. Tenyerme chikto chingelo Makyuke kudan dagelo Makyuke sundan dagima Makyuke tudan dageyi Tenyerme chikto chingelo Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Sangye Chodan Soge Chonam La Chancho Bardo Dani Kyapso Che Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ge Drola Pinchire Sangye Drubrasho Sangye Chodan Soge Chonam La Chancho Bardo Dani Kyapso Che Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ge Drola Pinchire Sangye Druparasho Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Pinchire Sangye Druparasho. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Just connecting to what we said yesterday, I had one thought, which is, who is the one that is really the most able one to break the law? Normally the best lawyers. The ones that really know very well the law, those are the ones that, really know how to go in between and to find their ways that they break but don't break, because they know that this law goes against that one and there are two contradictory laws, so they go to this but then they're breaking this but then they are being supported by the other, whatever, okay? What does this mean? Just that once we really know well a system, we can use that system in our advantage. Okay? When we don't know very well the system, we just need to follow the normal way. When we really know how it works, how it functions, then we can use that really for our own goals, for our own objectives, for our own benefits. Okay? Our mind somehow is in the same way. When we truly start understanding better the mechanisms of ourselves, we start understanding better the mechanisms of our mind, then we can use it for our own benefit. No? It looks almost like cheating ourselves sometimes, because we use the mind. I know this will make me to get that result, so I don't do this, I go that way, but it works. That's why it's so important for us to understand better the whole mechanism of our mind. But this is not the subject of today. Okay? But one mechanism that we saw yesterday very clearly, and a very important one, is the fact that we suffer much more for what regards the past and what regards the future. This comes from a very specific ability that we have as human beings, which is the ability to review the past and to project ourselves in the future. No? I was remembering when I was in the Congress in Holland, and then there was this friend, he was talking about the story of the zebra. What was his name? Right here. I don't remember anyhow. Anyhow, there was one of the doctors that was talking in one of this Congress, and he gave this speech about the zebra. And it really touched me. So he made the following example. He said, imagine a zebra. Then the zebra is there eating the grass very calmly, very relaxed. You know, the heart is very relaxed and calm. And suddenly comes the lion. Actually, it's the lioness, right? Because the ones that really go for hunting is the lioness, not the lion. So comes the lioness. And what happened to the zebra? The heart starts beating at 1,000. The zebra start running fast. There comes the lioness. And then suddenly the zebra is able to escape, and the lioness goes somewhere else, get distracted by something else, and the lioness forget about the zebra. And then it takes 5 minutes, not even, for the zebra to go back with the heart beating calmly, normally, and go back to eat its own grass, where it was before. Okay? What would happen if we would be the zebra? If we would be in the place of the zebra? First of all, arrives the lioness, we start running like crazy. We are so afraid and so on. Then at a certain point we see that the lioness, we don't see anymore the lioness, but we are still running. We never know what could happen, if maybe the lioness would come back, what to do, you know. And then suddenly after this whole process we are able to escape. And then we get home, and then there we are still talking about that. It takes like maybe 1 week for our heart to go back to normal. And then there we are talking to our children and saying, everybody is prohibited anymore to go there. We will institute a national day against the lions. And then we'll go there and then we'll tell our children, everybody is prohibited to go to eat in that place because it's too dangerous. And then every time we just go nearby that place where we were eating the last time, our hearts start beating. We get tachycardia, I don't know. Our hearts start beating fast. And then we have many, many nightmares about the lion eating us and what happened to our children. And then, you know, we decide that we cannot eat grass anymore in the future because that's too dangerous. And then we make all sorts of things. Okay? So, or every time we see grass, then we are suffering again because of that, you know. So, it's like all these things that happened, okay? Why? Because we have the tendency to review the past So we have the tendency to re-experience the traumas that we had in the past because we have this ability to go back and review the past. And at the same time, we have the ability to project ourselves in the future. So what happens is that we use this ability very often in a way that is not healthy for ourselves. So we pass a great deal of time re-suffering the past and pre-suffering because something bad happened, so we project ourselves in the future with that and so on. So, once we understand this mechanism, we understand that actually, first of all, suffering is part of life. Because where is this mechanism coming from? We have an expectation that everything will go well. Then when something goes wrong, we get very upset with that. And then we go back again to that suffering. Oh, why it didn't go in the way how it was supposed to be. And we re-suffer it again. Okay? We have this very strange attitude, which I saw so many times. When there is a moment where things go well, we expect that it will always be in this way. When there is something that goes bad, we are worried that we will always remain in that way. Many times there came people telling to me, oh Lama, I am so bad, but I cannot pass my whole life like this. Maybe a problem with someone, maybe a problem in the work, maybe a problem with health. So they probably, oh Lama, I cannot stay my whole life like this. And I don't always answer like that, but I think, don't worry. You will not stay your whole life like this. Or it will get worse, or it will get better. Like this, it will not remain. It's a fact, no? Things change. So if it would get worse, take advantage now that it's a bit better. It's true. If it would get better, don't worry so much because it would get better, right? So, what happened is that, in one way, because we have this expectation that things will be perfect, will continue good. Like, we start a relationship, we expect it will always be nice and wonderful. We start a new job, we expect that it will always be nice and wonderful. We go to a place and we expect it will always be like this. Like, we are really strange, huh? We go to a place, there is a sunny day, all so beautiful, the sunny day, then we wake up the next day, it's cloudy, but yesterday was sunny. Then you say, excuse me. Exactly, because yesterday was sunny, today can be cloudy, no? So the problem that happens to us is that we expect things to be in a way that it will always remain. When there is something good, we expect that it will always remain good. When there is something bad, we are worried that it will always remain bad. So we project ourselves in the future, looking at the same sufferings we have in the present, expecting that it will always continue like this, and we pre-suffer. Okay? And when we expect, after we look back in the past, then we suffer that stuff also because we cannot accept. But that look they didn't have difficulties when on a relationship. I saw a relationship that didn't have its own difficulties. I never saw any type of relationship, father and children and parents, between family and friends and job and work. At some point, the difficulties will come about. When we go to vacation, our body sooner or later will get sick. This is part of life. Okay? It's like this last time I was in Holland. I was talking to this group of students. Then came to my mind one question, which was, life is difficult, right? So the question was, is childhood difficult? Yes, I suppose. The kids there, they were saying yes. They were around there, 15 years old. They were saying yes, childhood is difficult, We need to do so many things we don't know why we need to do. We need to see our body changing. There is the fact of learning how to relate to people and understanding. It's not easy, childhood also. People treat us as if we were stupid. So, it's like, it's not easy childhood. Then, okay, teenage. Is it easy? Worse than childhood. Then becoming an adult. Okay, finding a job, creating the relationship, a couple relationship, and building up or not a family, and this and that, and all the stuff that relates to becoming an adult. Easy or difficult? I suppose it's difficult. Then remaining an adult, which means raising up one's own family or the work or one's own livelihood and dealing with the relationships and this and that and so on. Is it easy or difficult? It's difficult. Okay. Becoming an old person, aging. Aging in the sense like retirement and old age. Is it easy or difficult? I suppose old age is difficult. Dying? I don't remember sincerely, but I think it's difficult also, the process of dying. So, and by chance, being born is also difficult. So, life is difficult. Life is extremely beautiful, but it is difficult, right? So, there is a very important difference that we need to understand between a problem and a fact. Problem is something that there is a solution. A fact, it's something that we cannot change. So having problems in life, having difficulties in life, is it a problem or is it a fact? It's a fact. In the moment that we see the difficulties in life as a fact, somehow we relax. And we just see that yes, any relationship there will be difficulties. Any moment, anybody sooner or later will get sick. Any moment there will be difficulties of all sorts of difficulties will come. This is part of life. It's like when there is a group of people and you want to make harmony within all the people. It's like it's actually the only way to make harmony between all the people is making harmony between the mental defilements of all of them, no? It's quite difficult actually, huh? It's like that. The one time one is jealous, then the jealous get calm, then the other one has fear, then the one had arrogance and this and that. It's quite difficult in this way, no? So, similar to that, in our life, it's normal that problems will come. So once we understand this, that problems exist and will always exist, we stop fearing them. This is something that for me, it's quite clear. One of the best ways to stop to have fear about something is having the certainty of it. No? When something is a certainty, then it's no doubt anymore, it's not fear. Then we just need to deal with it differently. So having difficulties in life, it's part of life. It's part of nature of how things are. Until the day, as long as we have jealousy, envy, attachment, ignorance, selfishness, there's going to be suffering, there's going to be difficulties, and so on. So here we are. We are in the middle of all of this. It's part of our lives. But it's like a warrior going to war. When a warrior goes to war, used to go to war, okay, the old-time warriors, they would put an armor, right? Also nowadays, when people go to war, they also put armor somehow. For what reason does a warrior put on an armor? Because he looks beautiful in it? Because he knows that he's going to get hit. He knows that someone is going to hit him. So if he get hit by something, that's not a big deal because he knew already that was going to happen. And then it's not because he got hit once or twice that he's going to stop. He's going to even get more strength. No? So, similar to that, once we know that life is difficult, problems are there, problems will come, we prepare ourselves for that just like putting an armor. And we say, yes, there will be difficulties, but I have the means to deal with it. And I can learn from every difficulty. I can learn from every experience. Remembering also that we have no enough knowledge to understand what becomes what, which I mean, so many times in our life, something that looked negative brought good results. Something that looked good brought negative results to our lives. We are never really sure how things are, One time I listened to the example that life is like this game of connecting the dots. But let's imagine that the only perspective we have is that of the tip of the pencil, So we can see maybe the other dot there a little bit out of focus. And we can go, and we cannot see the whole picture. Many times we are not able to see the whole picture. But most of the times in this game, when can we see the whole picture? When the whole drawing is done. Similar to that, in our life, we do something, we don't know truly what it would bring. So the point is that the less we are afraid of suffering, the less we suffer. The more we see difficulties and so on as a part of life that are there, then we just need to learn how to deal with it in a better way. The more I know that whenever there is a difficulty and I am suffering with it, it is because there is something that I still need to learn within myself in order to be able to deal with it without suffering. Or I don't have enough wisdom, or not enough compassion, or too much attachment, or whatever, for whatever reason. So when we start understanding this, but most of all, when we stop having fear of suffering, because we know that difficulty is a part of life, suffering is a part of life, but we do not have so much fear of it anymore, we suffer much, much less. Okay? So we see the difficulties, we see the suffering, then as an opportunity to grow, to learn, to understand, to become stronger, to change ourselves, to transform ourselves positively. And if we are able to make this change, then we truly transform the adverse circumstances into the path to enlightenment. Okay? Well, now let's go to the next part of today. So, now let's go to the next point, which says, Jorwa Shiden Tapki Chok. The supreme method is accompanied by the 4 practices. So, we will see briefly what are the 4 practices. And they are. The first one is first of all, the 4 practices are there to help us to support our mind training. Okay? The first one is to accumulate merits. So to accumulate merits, it means consciously to do something that will generate some positive causes, some positive karma, positive energy, merits, in order for us to have our own mental stability, to be able to transform our mind, and so on and so on. I'm sorry, but there is no word in English to say for the word that we translate normally as merits, which in Sanskrit is called punya, in Tibetan is said sonam, but actually there is no real translation in English or in Italian or in Portuguese and so on, because the concept that does not exist in our culture. So the concept basically is that, making it very, very simple, but the concept basically is that anything that we experience is a result of a cause that was created, and that there is no result without causes, and every action is a cause for a future result. So positive causes that will bring positive results are merits. Causes that will bring negative results are negative karma. Okay? So, positive karma is the positive causes that will bring positive results. Negative karma are the negative causes that bring negative results. So, making it simple, which are the positive actions? How to accumulate positive actions in order to have good results? There are different ways, but the main way is that by helping others to avoid suffering, so helping others to be free from their suffering, and helping others to be happy. So it's like to take away suffering and to give happiness. These are the 2 main ways to accumulate merit. So, we do that mainly through generosity. If there is a person that is sick, and I'm able to give a medicine that will avoid that sickness and will avoid the suffering that otherwise the person would have without the medicine, I am helping the person to avoid suffering. If on the other side I am doing something that I'm making the person to feel more happy and well and so on, I am giving happiness, okay? So one of the main forms of our accumulation of merit is through generosity. So there is the generosity of giving materially, which is the most simple one and important. Then there is the generosity of giving love, which means to give affection. You know, that we can also be generous physically, we can help someone physically, we can smile, we can listen, we can give advices, we can share our knowledge, we can look at someone in the eyes and give them comfort. All of these are forms of generosity. It's not just a matter of needing to sign a check. Okay, there are so many forms of generosity that are there. Then there is formally we have four types of generosity. The generosity of giving materially, the generosity of giving love, the generosity of giving protection, which is avoiding suffering, and the generosity of giving the Dharma, which is the spiritual path. It is so important that in the tantric vows, the vows on the Vajrayana path, it is said that we take the vow that we will practice the 4 types of generosity 6 times a day. So basically 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the afternoon and evening. So which means that 6 times a day we will practice giving materially, giving love, giving protection, and giving the Dharma. If we are able to practice with awareness these 4 types of generosity at least once a day, that's already quite a lot. That's already very good, you know. And nowadays we can do it in so many nice, easy ways also. We need to give generosity of giving the Dharma, you know. Take Twitter and write a nice message, share the Dharma with people. You know, I'm just making whatever example, okay? But there are so many ways how we can share the Dharma with other people, share the spiritual path. Anyhow, there are also 2 other aspects when we talk about generosity and giving, which is more connected somehow to the material form of giving. One way is if I give directly. So if we take an example, let's say I take 100 euros and I buy medicine to give to one person that is sick. I'm helping that person, that's beautiful, that's wonderful. Another way is that I take that same 100 euros and I give a donation to the hospital that is helping 10,000 people every day. And I become a little drop in the ocean of that hospital. But when I do in that way, every person that the hospital helps for a long period, I have a very little share on it. I am a small part on the whole. So actually this makes my own action to multiply. And I reach much more people than actually doing a direct action only. That's why in Tibet there was given so much emphasis to helping monasteries and institutions and so on, because it would be a way of really reaching more people instead of what I could do only by myself. Okay? Anyhow, the fact is that it's important for us daily to do something with awareness to accumulate merits. Another way is by keeping our commitments. So if we make a commitment to avoid a certain negative action and we keep that commitment, that's a way of accumulating merit. If we make a commitment to do something that is positive and we keep that commitment, that's also another way of accumulating merit. And we make offerings, that's another way of accumulating merit, which is always giving. Anyhow, the next practice is that of purifying the negative karma. The practice of purification, has 2 levels of importance. One level is that it helps us to block the negative causes we have created in the past and eliminate them. And the other one is to block our own negative behaviors and habits of growing. So, we should daily develop the 4 powers of purification, which is the first one is to generate an opposite attitude, which means if I acted with anger on a certain occasion, I need to act with love and compassion. If I was with miserliness, I need to act with generosity, and so on. So, basically, normally, once we act with love and compassion, this is enough to have this opposite attitude. The second power is actually for us to openly admit our own mistakes. You know, all of us, we do stupid things sometimes in life. Actually, every day, mostly. We say something we were really not supposed to say. We make an expression that was really not kind. We act with jealousy, with envy, with whatever way, okay? We don't do what we know that we should be doing. There are many ways that we do. So the point is that once we admit that we did something that was not the right thing to do, it's not with the sense of guilt, but it's somehow with the sense of relief, saying, I acknowledge that what I did was wrong, and I make the commitment that I will not repeat it again, which is the fourth power. The third power is not to repeat again, to have the commitment not to repeat again. And the fourth power is to do something that is positive in order to oppose to that negative thing that was done. Okay? Even in a more mundane level, okay? More practical level. If we go to a person and we do something wrong, okay? In the relationship, whatever, in the job, with the parents, with the children, in the couple, anywhere, we do something that was not really nice. We act in a way that was not correct. If we just come after and said, oh, I am sorry, okay, nice, but not enough, Still remains something there, negative. Instead, if I say, I am sorry, I will really commit myself not to do that again. And at the same time, we put energy into making something positive, into doing something good with that person in order to counteract what we have done, to oppose to what we have done. This have a very strong power of transformation. Okay? But the last step is very important. We must do something good to overcome the negative thing that was done before. This is also helping a lot for us to change our own habits. Otherwise, we do something that is not good. Okay, it's gone, it's nothing, okay, then after we do it again. In the moment that I openly admit that that was not okay, I commit myself not to repeat, and I do something in order to oppose to that, it will be much more difficult for me to repeat that action again after. So this is the four power of purifications. We should do them daily also, okay? So these are the first two actions, the first two practices that we do in order to give support to our practice. Okay? I think quite clear, right? We could go on and on details about this, but that's not the moment for that. So, the next two practices regard something that is, first of all, we are all influential beings. We can be influenced by others quite easily. Depending on with whom we are, in which situation we are, we can be influenced by others. That's clear, right? So, not only we can be influenced by human beings and animals and so on, but we can also be influenced by that which in English would be generalized calling spirits. There are beings that exist that do not have a gross body as we do have, okay? In Tibetan, we have maybe 50 different names for all different types of spirits. The fact is that in every tradition, in every spiritual tradition that I have known up to now, there's always been taken into consideration the existence of these beings. Like, even in the Christian tradition, from the little that I know, if there would not be these subtle beings, there will be no need of exorcism. Or there will be no, what someone called the angels or whatever, okay? So what happens is that I deeply believe in the existence of these very subtle forms of life. And there are all sorts of spirits. There are some that are very highly developed spiritually, some that are very low, just like us human beings. We have all sorts of people, we have all sorts of spirits, okay? So what happens is that in the same way that we can be influenced by humans, we can also be influenced by spirits. So it is important for us to create harmony with them. So the third practice, both the third and the fourth practice regard making harmony with spirits. The third practice is to act with generosity towards them. It's like giving to them, sharing something to them, making an offering to them and saying, let's be friends. So it's like when we go to a place where it's the first time, we make an offering, like Kyabche Trishan Rinpoche was telling me the last time he was here. He was telling that he has this, not the last time, the time before, that he has this habit that whenever he goes to some place for the first time, he always make an offering to the local beings, the local spirits. So, and he likes, for example, going to the churches, because that's the original religion of the place as a fact of respect. And also the local deities and local spirits are connected to that also. So, for example, when he came here to Albagnano for more days, one day he went by himself down to Intra to the church, and he brought some flowers there. And he say whenever he arrived to a place at the first day, and he doesn't have enough time to go like to a church or somewhere, he will put even in the hotel room some flowers there. Or order a plate of food specifically for that, like to dedicate for that spirits, which in a way is just saying, okay, let's be friends. I'm here, I'm coming here, this is your house, I'm coming to your place, I'm coming with good intention, let's be friends. Okay? So this intention, whenever we enter a forest, whenever we go to a new city, whenever we go anywhere, this is something that is important to do. Then there are specific practices that can be done. There is the practice of chasum, there is the practice of the tsogla. Whenever we do the tsog, there is the remaining part. We receive one part of food, and then we share one part we give back. This is actually given to these local spirits in order for them to be satisfied and fulfilled and not harm us anymore, not be any more of a negative influence towards us. The monks originally have this commitment that whenever eating, to leave a small portion of food dedicated for some spirits, so that also to create harmony with them. There are many different ways that we can create this harmony. Mainly it's coming from our own inner behavior, from our own inner attitude. Okay? This is the first thing that is the most important. Also because if we look, most of living beings, doesn't matter animals, human beings, spirits, when someone is truly, sincerely, gentle and loving towards them, difficultly they would harm this person. We can see even in the worst situations of conflict and violence, towards those that are truly respectful and truly loving and kind, difficultly there will be acts of violence. There is sometimes also. That's why we need a fourth practice, okay? But the third practice is this act of generosity, and this is something important that we need to do also. It's like making harmony. It's like we go to a place, we make harmony with those that are living there, okay? Also the incense that we use normally, the Tibetan incense that we use, which is made by Panchen Lobsang, this incense, it has a very specific characteristic also, that some of the substances that are inside the incense, they are for a reason of making a nice smell. But there are also some herbs that are inside the incense. They are not there to make any smell. Basically, these herbs are being used because spirits nourish themselves out of smell. And there are some smells that attract some types of spirits and some smells that put away some types of spirits. So basically, by choosing the right herbs to put in the incense, this makes us to put away some types of influence of spirits and brings towards us to invite other types of beings to come also. That's why also incense have this power of purification of the environment, the incense that we use. I don't think every incense that exists is made with this awareness, but in our incense there is very clearly this awareness. So this is also something, so if we just burn some incense around and so on, and just very brief brackets, there is also some smells that do the opposite action. They bring some types of spirits and put away others. For example, the smell of alcohol and tobacco. Actually, it's bringing the influence of spirits that are harming us and putting away the good ones. So, okay, close brackets, each one think for yourself. The next point is that there are some spirits that even though we are nice and kind to them, they still want to harm us. It's like we go to live in a new town, we go to live in a small town and we are there, so we are very kind to everybody around us, we are nice to people, we give them presents, we are kind to all of them. to our neighbors and everyone. So most of them are also kind to us. But there is a small local mafia, the small local organized crime, that they want to take advantage upon me, and they want to harm me, and so on. So how do I protect myself from them? I am being kind to them, and they are not taking that into consideration. So how can I protect myself from them? By relying upon someone that is stronger than them and they fear. No? If I am protected by someone that they fear, they will not harm me. Similar to that, there are what are called the Dharmapalas. The Dharmapalas are highly realized beings, powerful beings that don't have a physical body, which we could call like spirits. But yeah, okay, we don't like deities or spirits anyhow, that doesn't have a gross body. And they are spiritually highly realized, and they have the deep commitment to protect those that are practicing the Dharma. So basically, we rely upon them in order for them to protect us from the negative influence of some kinds of spirits. That's the main reason why we rely upon a protector. Okay? And because when we are in the beginning of our path and if we are completely, taken care by very gross external thoughts and so on, okay, we do not feel so much the influence of spirits and so on. But the more we go deeper into our practice, the more subtle it becomes our mind, the more we can feel the influence and the more strong it can be. And in that case, it becomes more important to have a good protector, to have someone that protects us from this type of influences. And that's the function of the Dharmapala. That's the function of a Dharma protector. Okay? We do not rely upon a Dharma protector in order to get money, in order to get fame, in order to get power or anything like that. We rely upon the Dharma protector in order to protect ourselves from the subtle interferences for our own spiritual development. Okay? So, for that reason, normally the Dharma protectors are passed by from guru to disciple, from the lineage. So in our lineage, we have two main protectors, which is Pandchen Lama and Dorje Shukden. These are our two main protectors, which were passed to us from our Guru Kanche Rinpoche, which received from his Guru Tricha Rinpoche, and like this it goes on, from Papunka Rinpoche and so on. So, normally the first thing that we need to do is to rely upon mentally, but it works like this. In the moment I take refuge in my Guru, and I practice correctly, his protector is also going to protect me. Because it's like it extends to the disciples also. And if we truly practice the Dharma correctly, even if we do not make any prayers or anything, the protector is going to protect us. This is very clear. Okay? Because he has the commitment to protect the practitioners. If we do not practice, he has no commitment to protect us. If we practice correctly, he has a commitment to protect us. Okay? So then there are also the pujas, the practice, the mantras, the offerings, and many things that we can do in order to create this connection of protection with Dharmapalas and so on. But the main thing is to practice correctly the Dharma and to rely upon the protectors, understanding that they protect us from this subtle form of interferences. Okay? So these are the 4 practices that we need to do to give support for our mind training. Accumulate merits, purify negativities, make offerings to the spirits to create harmony with them, and rely upon a Dharma protector. Okay? Well, now let's go to the next part. So, the next part we enter is one of the parts that I most like of these teachings. And it's the 4th point. And the 4th point, it says, Menga nyingpo durdu pa tom nga dadan jarwarcha, tek chempowe dam nga ni, top nga nying chelam che. In brief, the integrated practice of a single lifetime, which means there are 5 things that we need to integrate in our life, and by integrating it in our life, we make it possible to be always practicing the path and the mind training of Lojong. So, it says, in brief, the essence of the instruction is to train in the 5 powers, The 5 powers themselves are the great vehicles precept on the transference of consciousness. Cultivate this path of practice. We cannot understand much if we don't know what are the 5 powers. We should remember that this text is not a text of explanation. This is a text of which has the essence of something that we have already learned in another context, and then it helps us to remember it. Okay? And luckily we have the commentaries, such as this very essential and beautiful commentary by Trijang Rinpoche. So, which are the 5 powers? First of all, we have the 5 powers as applied during our life, and the 5 powers in relation to our death, which are also very important, which are 5 things that we need to practice in order to prepare ourselves for our death. And as we now have no idea when we are going to die, it's better to start practicing them now. But first, let's see the 5 powers in relation to life, and then we'll see the 5 powers in relation to death. The 5 powers in relation to life. In both cases, the 5 powers are the same. They just have a different order and they have a different meaning. Okay? So the names are, we have first of all the power of intention, then the power of familiarization, then the power of virtue, the power of opposition, and the power of prayer. These are the 5 powers. So, in relation to life, the power of intention is the intention to never let oneself be driven by one's own selfishness and mental defilements. What does that mean? I do have selfishness, yes. I do have anger, jealousy, pride, miserliness, yes. But when I see that the anger appears, I will not speak out of anger. I will not make choices out of anger. I will not act out of anger. When I see that jealousy comes, I will allow jealousy to manifest itself. I will not try to block it, but I would not let myself be driven by it. I will not allow myself to talk out of jealousy. I will not allow myself to act out of jealousy. I will not allow myself to make choices out of jealousy or judgments out of jealousy. Okay? So this is the first power, this power of to have this strong intention not to let ourselves to be driven by our own mental defilements. The second power is then called the power of familiarization, which is never to be separated from the 2 trainings. The training on relative bodhicitta and the training on absolute bodhicitta, which we saw some days ago. So these 2 trainings, on training in love, compassion, and training in wisdom, we should never be separated from these 2 trainings. And with this, we actually generate this power of familiarization. The third power is called the power of virtue, which is to accumulate merits in order to sustain the mind of bodhicitta. The mind of love, compassion, and wisdom. In order for it to remain in that state, for us to remain in that state, we need merits. Because normally what happens, when we are able to generate an inner state of peace, does it remain forever like that? No. After some time it's gone. And sometimes we have all the conditions and that state of mind cannot be sustained because there are no merits for it. It takes a lot of merits to keep an inner state of peace and love and wisdom. So that's why we need to accumulate a lot of merits to sustain this inner state of bodhicitta, relative and absolute bodhicitta. So, the third power is to accumulate merits, that we have just spoken before when we were talking about the 4 practices. So we accumulate merits dedicated specifically to sustain our own mind of love, compassion, and wisdom, the relative and absolute bodhicitta. Then the 4th power is called the power of opposition. The power of opposition is to constantly remember the faults of selfishness and our mental defilements. It's like in the very beginning of the text, we were saying, banish the one to blame for everything. So this is basically the same thing. It's always remembering why selfishness is the one that is causing all the trouble to us. How selfishness is harming us. What are the faults of selfishness? You know, the more we remember that, the stronger this feeling to oppose ourselves to selfishness will be. Then we have the last, which is called the power prayer. And the power of prayer, it means we dedicate our merits, not by accumulating merits to sustain this, opposition, bring the false. And now, let's go to the next step, because I think it's very much more, this 5 is very important, but the 5 powers related to death, somehow I think they're very much adapted to our needs nowadays, to the society and everything where we live. They are very realistic also. Okay? So now, the 5 powers in relation to death. Okay? They are actually quite simple, but very powerful, very important. So the names are the same as before, the order is different, and the meaning is slightly different. So we start with the power of virtue, then we have the power of intention, then there is the power of opposition, then there is the power of prayer, and then the power of familiarization. So the first one, the power of intention, it means to relate to material things as a mean and not as a goal. It's to develop non-attachment to material things. Which means, why do I have this? Because it has a specific function for me. One of the worst things that happen in the moment of death is our attachment to things and people. That's what blocks us the most in front of our own death. Our inability to let go. One of the ways to prepare ourselves for that is not to detach ourselves from everything, but is to relate ourselves to everything as a mean, understanding what do I give, what do I receive, what's the function that this or that has towards me. You know? Starting with the material things. We need to understand that material things are like energy. Everything that we have material is a sort of energy through which it needs to move. It's like water. If it gets blocked, it gets stagnated. It needs to have movement. So, everything that we possess is some energy that is there. So, for instance, one of the things which is very important to do this is we look at the things that we possess. You know, we can go home, one room at a time, one drawer at a time, but we look at what we have and we ask ourselves. First of all, we look at the object and we ask, am I serving you or are you serving me? And if I find out that I am the one serving the object, something is not going well. Second, we should ask, what is the function that you object have for me? If it has the function, I have the bell, what's the function of the bell? Okay, it helps me to listen to beautiful sounds. It helps me to meditate, to remember myself to remind me of emptiness or whatever. Wonderful. Or it doesn't matter, you know, the object can have any function, practical function, I can feel secure with that object, it can make me to connect with memories, whatever it is. But if I am in front of an object and I ask myself, what's the function that that object has for me? And it has no function whatsoever, then the possibilities are 3. Or sell it, or throw it, or give it. No other possibility. Because keeping it means energy blocked there. Okay? And we need to understand that everything that we possess, it has a meaning of possessing it when it has a function for us. If it has no function, then what's the point of having it? Just our own energy blocked there. Okay? And actually, even in relation to people, if we relate to people as a goal, you know, in a relationship, in the moment that we see the other one as a goal, it's the beginning of the end. If we understand that the relation with the other person, it's a means, which means why I relate with you, because I give you something I receive from you. There is an exchange. It's a constantly giving and receiving. It's a possibility towards you. I can love you, you can love me. I can receive love and I can give love. I can be generous and I can receive. I can do some, I can learn things. I can give and I can receive. So when we see that even the human relationships are not something that are like a final goal. Oh, I got the attention from that person. I got that relation that's final. No, it's a relationship where we give and when we receive. There is an exchange. So when we see it as a mean for our own growth, our own development, and so on, then it's a complete different way of relating to people also. Otherwise, what happens is that the moment that we need to die, and I'm sorry to say we need to die at one moment, when that moment will come, the more we are attached to situations, to people, and to objects, the more difficult it is to let go. The more I relate myself, even to the most precious one that is my guru, I relate to him as an exchange. He shows me the path, and I'm grateful for what I receive. I want to be as long as I can together, but I'm grateful for every moment. And I understand that there is an exchange. I understand it is a means for my own spiritual development. It changes very much the nature of the relationship. The more we relate to things as a final goal, the more difficult it becomes to get separated from them at some point. The more we relate it as a means for our own development and we use it well, the easier it will be in the moment we need to separate from it. And we have no choice other than separating sooner or later from everything and everyone. Okay? We need to remember that we are born alone, we live alone, and we die alone. In the sense that no one can live our lives for us. We can only interact with other people. And this interaction is very important also. So it's beautiful to have all the relationships we have, but they are there as a way of exchange. So once we realize this clearly, then we put into practice this first power, which is the power of virtue. The reason why it's called the power of virtue, it's because material things have a double face. On one side, they have no benefit because the moment that we die, we cannot take anything with us. Like a friend of mine used to say, I don't want to be the most rich one of the cemetery. Okay? So, what happened is that in the moment we die, we cannot take anything with us. But money, material things, is energy. If it's used well, it can create a lot of benefit, even after our own death. No? If it's used wrongly, it can create a lot of conflicts also. No? There is one text which has a bit of a negative view, but this text is saying like this. During my life, I work very hard to accumulate wealth. In order to accumulate wealth, I accumulate a lot of negative karma also, by fighting, lying, jealousy, envy, conflicts, and so on. In order to accumulate my wealth, I also accumulate a lot of negative karma. Before dying, I give a direction of what I want that wealth to, how I want that wealth to be distributed and used. So I give very precise instructions of what I want others to do. The moment I die, nobody cares for the instructions I have given. Everybody starts fighting for what I have left, and I need to take with me the negative karma that I did in order to accumulate that wealth. So, what is being said here is that we need to use the material things in a way that it will continue to generate positive energy. This is what is important. If I write a book, which is something material, and after 100 years someone read that book and receives some benefits from it, I will receive some part of that benefit also, because I am part of that cause. So, in the moment we participate in something, the moment we use what we have materially to generate something positive, this will naturally gives us the possibility to continue to generate positive energy even after this body is not here anymore. Okay? So this is why it's called the power of virtue. Using the material things in a positive way, not in a way that is just creating more suffering. That's the meaning. The second power is called the power of intention, which in few words, it means not to be attached to our own body. To develop an identity that goes beyond this body and this name. Is in order to be able to have a vision of ourselves that can transcend this body. It's called the power of intention, because we can generate the intention to transcend this body. We have the intention to have a good rebirth. We look forwards. We can look beyond this life. And in order to do that, we must have an identity. We must be able to see ourselves beyond, transcending this body, this name here. Okay? One exercise to start to do that is to write a letter. It's a letter of introduction. We should imagine that anyone who reads this letter should be able to recognize us. But in the letter, we cannot say our name. We cannot say anything about our body. We cannot say I am tall, I am short, I am a man, or I am a woman, or anything about our body. We cannot say anything about our social position. We cannot say, oh, I am the son of this, the daughter of that, the father here, the husband there, the wife, or whatever. We cannot say, I am a doctor, I am a lama, I am an architect, I am this, I work here, I do that, or I am the owner of this or that. Then we ask, what can I write in it then? No? We should put inside things like, I am that kind of person that when I see someone suffering, I really want to help him. Or I am that kind of person that when I see someone suffering, I want to escape away. I do everything I can to escape away because I am too overwhelmed by my own problems. I don't want to help others. Or I am that kind of person that whenever there is the opportunity to rejoice by what is happening, I'm so happy to rejoice. Or I get angry very easily. Or I am have very much concentrated. Or I have no control over my mind, whatever. We look from within, from inside. And we tell others, we tell in this letter how we are from inside. So if anybody that could look from inside could recognize us. So we write this letter that is not so easy. One very important rule, no one else can read this letter other than us. Because if we know that someone will read it, then we already write it differently, okay? Don't worry if there are inconsistencies in the letter, because we are inconsistent ourselves. We are incoherent ourselves. So don't worry about that. If there are contradictions, don't worry. We are full of contradictions ourselves. So don't worry if there are contradictions in the letter. Write the letter, close it, put the date. 6 months later, write another letter. When you finish writing the new letter, then you read the one of before. Then you see the difference. Then after 6 months, another letter. If we do this, we start to create a habit to look inside ourselves, to judge ourselves from within, to understand better ourselves. And gradually we can develop this type of identity. Okay? So this is another point. First, power, non-attachment towards material things and using it in a positive way. Second, non-attachment towards our body by developing an identity that transcends this life and this body. Okay. The next three powers, very briefly, they are the power of opposition, which means to recognize that mental defilements must be abandoned. Is the determination, I will not follow my defilements. I don't want to be driven by my anger, jealousy, pride, or any other defilement. Because one of the worst things that can happen to us in the moment of our death is to die with anger or envy or any other negative defilement. Or it's one of the worst things that we can do is to die with these negative emotions. So we need to understand that we need to abandon these negative emotions. This is the power of opposition, to oppose ourselves to our negative defilements. Then we have the power of prayer, which is to direct ourselves to never be separated from bodhicitta. I always want to be with love and compassion and wisdom. This is my main aspiration. This is the direction to which I put myself. And the last, which is called the power of familiarization, is to constantly familiarize oneself with relative and absolute bodhicitta, with love, compassion, and wisdom. So, when do we need to start practicing the 5 powers to prepare ourselves for death? When we are in the hospital with the flavor, we are there already not able to do anything, overwhelmed by our own pain and something? No. When do we need to start doing it? Now. Sometimes people ask me, how can I prepare for death? This is what we can do. Relate in a positive way to the material things. Relate to a positive way to our body and generate an identity that transcends this body. Oppose ourselves to our negative habits and negative behaviors of mind, bodies, and speech. And I wish to develop a positive state of mind and of actions and familiarize oneself with the positive attitudes such as love, compassion, and wisdom. This is what we can do. Okay? And it's very powerful. If we really practice these 5 things, there is no doubt that we can going to have a good continuity after death. This is the certainty. As it's said here in the text, it says, the 5 powers themselves are the great vehicles precept of the transference of consciousness. Which means, if we practice correctly these 5 powers, there is no doubt that we are going to have a good continuity after death. Okay? So, and the other thing is that if we practice them well, we are going to have a good life also. Not only a good continuity, but it's also good for this life. Okay? Why there's the difference of order? I think basically relating to death. If we are not able to eliminate attachment to material things, we were never going to be able to eliminate attachments to our appearance and our body. And if we have these 2, forget about the rest. The rest is not coming easily also, because we are not even able to direct ourselves to transcend, to have an idea and an image that transcends this life. No? So just to conclude, really, with this we conclude the last verse, which says, cultivate this path of practice, which means put these 5 powers into practice. And in essence, what they are. Relate positively with material things and people. Develop a good identity of your own self that transcends this life. Recognize what is harmful to you and oppose yourself to it. Recognize what is beneficial for you and wish to realize it. Familiarize yourself with what is beneficial to you. These are the 5 powers. Okay? And if we make it clear, then we have something very strong in our whole life on which we can hold as we move along day by day. Okay? Jetsun lame kutse rapten chi namkara trile chochur gepada losan tempe dreme sasumgi drove munsel tatu ne gyurchi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan dele kshin ninsen taktu dele Concho sumge jinge lom, sumge ngodrup sol, concho sumge atrashishon. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the rituals grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Omahun Dambala me Sangye Rinpoche, Gyobala me Tamcho Rinpoche, Drimbala me Gendurim, Kyamne Kuncho Sumla Chopa.